All right, guys, we're going to paint something from the sketchbook. I think I know what I'm going to do. It's going to come off of one of my holiday type sketches. Let's see what we end up with. Hello and welcome to Deliberately Creative. I'm Stephanie and we're going to do a fun, sweet little wreath. This is going to be kind of like a vine wreath with some little mushrooms on it. I was playing in my sketchbook and playing with some ideas, cottagecore type stuff. So this was, I think, probably this one right here. Maybe do the vine wreath more like this, not quite so busy, more like a little crown. We'll see. This is going to be fun. I am excited to play. So we're going to get started here. I have the Hanamule rough postcard. It is 105 pounds, so it's a little bit thinner, but it's lovely to do the sort of cottagecore homey type of paintings because it has sort of a homespun, almost a woven pattern on the board itself. I'm going to draw this in using the Uniball Signo RT1. It's the UMN 155-28 and it is 0.24. We're going to draw this in. I am just going to go straight in with my pen. You can go in with a pencil, any kind of pencil. This is a mechanical pencil, a regular pencil. Use an eraser that's going to lift, not smear. So a nice and sticky putty type eraser, kneaded eraser is my favorite. When I'm drawing, I like to have something in my hand for some reason. And this is the perfect thing because I can squish it. It's like a fidget. And it's a useful thing. It's not just a toy. I'm going to go in and just do a rough and ready type of vine. Around and around a few times. It'll get more of a dimension when we put the leaves and the mushroom, and I'm thinking maybe a little bit of some moss kind of coming up along here and coming down, dripping off the edge. And then I want to get the cap of this little guy in. I'm going to have it drooping forward, so it's like a little smile, and then going up over the top, so he's kind of domed. And then we're not seeing underneath of the mushroom, so we're not seeing a lot of that, the gills and things like that. But we do see this little sort of papery skirt that's around the stalk of the mushroom. We're going to be painting with the Holbein gouache. This is the standard gouache, not the acrylic gouache. It's going to be more watercolor-like, or have the ability to be more watercolor-like. It is going to blend back. You don't have to, worry if you go too far. You can always blend things back or wipe things out. I'm going to put in a few leaves. I don't have to draw every single leaf. I can put some of the greenery in with just the paint. But I like doing these kinds of things, these soft and gentle types of paintings, and it's really very easy. See, these are just long V shapes. See, just a V out and back. You can put a couple of them on little stems that stick out farther. Cottagecore is one of those very romantic and romanticizing type of views on the world and on living, a lot of us want a little bit more of a slower life, and that is definitely part of the cottagecore aesthetic, is living that slower life, living the dream. Oh, there we go. See, I can just keep going with these little details, but I think that's enough to get us started. I have already sprayed the palette with water so that the gouache is a little bit woken up. I am going to spray it a bit more. There. I'm just using an eyeglass sprayer. All right, to get this background in, I think I'm going to we're just going to go over the whole thing. So there. The pen is pretty waterproof. It does lift a little bit on this paper. I'm surprised. I haven't had this pen lift on paper before. Didn't do enough to bother me. So I think we're going to go kind of yellow ochre. Very watery. Oh, there's a little bit of some blue in here. I'm going to grab a little bit of that. Kind of mushroomy colored. And we're just going to over the whole thing. Just giving it a light wash of color. This is going to dry pretty darn quickly, and it's going to dry very, very light. I am putting it on really thin, just like a watercolor. This is a 1-inch flat wash brush. I'm picking up a little tiny bit of some burnt sienna. This card would be lovely for a thinking of you card, for, you know, any of the upcoming holidays, Thanksgiving Day, Friendsgiving. A little bit darker in the corner. Whoop, that was a little bit much. Just work that off the edge just a bit. I want to give it sort of a tiny little vignette. So this was yellow ochre and burnt sienna in a lovely little vignette, kind of keeping that center so it can be a little bit glowy. There we are. Nice thing about this is just like regular watercolor. It's not going to hurt my brushes if I don't get them clean right away. I need to dry it. So real quick, I'm just going to finish drying this. This is just the little heated craft tool. Here we go. That's lovely. It's dry, or dry enough. Oh, and this is just a piece of plastic corrugated board that I have cut up into different size pieces to use either as palettes or to use as surfaces to tape my paintings down to. Now we're going to take the liner brush, and I'm going to put in some of those twiggy bits for the wreath. And they're going to be a little bit stronger paint. I want them to stand up, stand away from that background. I'm adding burnt umber and burnt sienna together on a liner brush. This is a number 2/0. And I'm holding it out back away from the edge of it. I'm going to put a little bit of it there. Whoops. You want to make sure that your paint stays wet on the brush. You don't want it to break and give you all the texture of the paper, unless you do. You know, you could want that. Now right here, this is going to be moss coming down, so I want to make sure that I leave space for that moss without having to go back and reclaim it. Work smarter, not harder. I'm letting the brush, just sort of wiggle. This is a natural wreath, natural vines. I made a whole bunch of vine wreaths off of wisteria that I had trimmed. So this is reminding me of the wisteria wreaths that I made, more so than grapevine. I don't know, you know? Putting a little bit of that brown, just sort of poking in and out around the leaves. It's not perfect, doesn't have to be. And allowing some of those lines to be darker and some to be lighter, putting in a little bit of dark around some of the edges. You get that really lovely shadow, or the areas that, you know, are behind. Let it wobble around. And I do want to put maybe one or two darker ones sort of coming over the top. Oh, there we go. See? We get that lovely twisted vine look. A little bit darker. We're catching the shadows underneath of it. I went a little bit too watery there. I need to add a bit more of the gouache back in. I just picked up some burnt sienna. Excuse me, I picked up some burnt umber. Golly, those burnt colors, you know, they live next door to each other on the palette. There we go. Maybe a little bit darker up here underneath of a couple of the leaves. Sort of tucking back in. So when I put those leaves on, I don't have to worry about fiddling with that shadow, because I can fiddle with it right now. There we go. So look, oh, that's really sweet. You can put anything on your little wreath too. You know, that's part of the fun of this, is that you can add anything you want into that wreath. I'm going to grab some of this green. It's very bright green right now. I'm going to take a little bit of that burnt umber, burnt sienna mix and put it in there. And then just give this a quick wash. It's been more of an olive tone now. Just give it that bit of moss. I'm going to take a little bit more brown into it. Just dropping it in and let it sort of starburst out, using the paper texture to my benefit. See, just like that. I think we're gonna grab another green, whatever green it is. Ooh, that's making a lovely shadowy, licheny moss. I don't have my swatch card with all of the names on it right here, or I would tell you the right names for the paint. But you know what? I'm just getting all of these colors sort of in. I just picked up some of the brown. Moss has all kinds of colors, doesn't it? I'm going to let that dry, and while I do that, I'm going to swing this. So I'm not going to put my hand in that wet paint. And I'm going to move over here and wet down some of these leaves. I don't need the eraser in my hand. All right, wet down some of these leaves. these leaves here are all out by themselves, so I can go and do a little bit of some kind of watercolor effect to them. Wet them down, add some color. Dropping some of that dark in there, in those wet leaves. We're going to change these colors up as we go, maybe into the dry leaves. Let's see if that makes any difference. Yeah. It does flow around a little bit in the water, in the wet, but you don't have to wet them because you can blend it with your, I'll just do it dry. Let's just do it dry. Dry paper, wet brush. This is my darker color. That leaf there needs to be almost all dark. I am going to grab some of this sort of it's a real reddy color. I'm going to mix it into that green, which makes it almost brown, just for the darkest shadows in a couple of these leaves. I don't want to do that for everything. And then I'm going to take some of the yellow ochre and this brighter green. I want it to be kind of a murky green, sort of a mushroomy color. Not really. I mean, moss. Could be kind of a moss color. Oh, that's still really dark. So I think that's going to be going for my veins in the centers. With some of those leaves. Oh, drawing some of that darker color that's there out. And I want it to be lots lighter. Now I need a really light green to kind of mix in with that. So I'm going to take this light green, just the tiniest touch of the brownish tone that's in there. Ah, there we go. And you can blend right in the leaf. Now, if you pick up too much of the dark, rinse your brush out, go back and pick up your light paint again. Oh, that's looking pretty. That's looking good. I like that. And I'm not too worried about making sure I stay in the lines. That cottagecore aesthetic is very natural. You know? It's very soft. Like I said before, it's very romantic and romanticizing of living in the country, living in nature, putting on an apron, baking bread, growing a garden, making your own wreaths. Maybe I'll insert a little picture of some of just the vines that I wrapped up into wreaths. I could do that. And these were, like I said, wisteria that was growing like crazy. There's a picture of my wisteria. The colors are changing. They're going nice and golden right now in the autumn. I'm going to take just a little bit of some bright yellow and put some light on the edges. Oh, look at that. Blur it in. Light on the edges, and that is just this medium yellow. Tiny touch, a little bit more water. This is the Silver Black Velvet number 4. Tiny little tip, but it's a big enough brush that it holds some moisture, and it has enough body to it to move the gouache around when it's not too thick. Putting a little touch of that bright yellow on the edges, just to make them feel like they're lit up. Maybe a little bit. The sun is kissing it. This was collected out in the woodland or off the hedgerow. And now it's going to hang on the door or on the card. Oh, wow. That is so pretty. Brightening it up, lightening up those edges just a bit. I'm going to take some of that yellow and put a little bit of that right along the edge of my moss, because the colors that I have here right now, those are sort of my background. They're not the final colors, but I want a little edge of this bright yellow right in here. It's going to brighten that up just a bit. Don't need it bright right in front of the little mushroom. And I see right here I need a little bit more of, maybe just a little bit of dark. So I'll just put a couple little bits of some dark right in there, because that vine right underneath the moss is going to be really dark. So let's just plant some shadow in underneath of it. Put a little bit of some shadow in a few of these spots. They don't need to be quite so bright. Maybe a bit of shadow up underneath of these leaves. This is really making me happy. I think I'm going to be making some more of these soft little designs. I did do a whole series last year on a marathon of cute and creative ornaments. So this is a whole bunch of individual little ornaments that are perfect as watercolor references, or you can just grab out your pencils and go to town. The book is 31 Cute and Creative Winter Ornaments. If you click below the video, there's a the description box. You can either buy this as an instant downloadable book, and then you can print it and have your pages. You could print it on watercolor paper and go right into painting, or you could buy it from Amazon as a printed book. So I just thought I'd share that. Very reasonably priced, and the downloadable book, you can actually click over to the side. There's like a little tray of my merchandise, and this is over in that merchandise tray also. Now I do want to finish up this moss a little bit more. I'm going to take a bit of that brown and put a little bit of some shadow. Just like that, little shadow under the edge of some of that light, giving it a little bit more texture. Maybe a little bit dark green right here under some of the edges also. Maybe right along some of that yellow. I want it to be textured. I want it to have highlights and lowlights. I want it to feel a little bit mossy. So I'm actually on top of that yellow I'm using the very tiny little tip, and I'm just going to put some of that brown green, and I'm just making it look almost grassy. You know, moss has that lovely texture, soft and fluffy, or it can be hard and flat and scaly, but I'm saying this is that some of that soft and fluffy moss. So I'm just along some of those areas where it's dark, I'm going to just put a few little tiny strokes. I need you to tell me in the, whoopsie, see, I just made a mark out there. That's okay, look at that. It was such a quick and light little mark, I was able to wash it right off. I need you to tell me if you would like some longer videos with just the slow painting and, you know, me making comments about the painting as I'm going along, but not worried about how long it's taking me. Doing some slow art. Would you be interested in a knitting video where I just sit and knit? I know some people like to watch things like that. I'm working on a sweater right now, so that's why I was asking. It's a top-down raglan sweater. The pattern is the October sweater off of Lion brand. I found the author of the pattern, and so I went and found her site, and she has the pattern available on her webpage. You have to keep clicking through. We're going to go with a creamy, very light creamy color here. So I'm going to take some white and put it down on top of some of that slightly brownish tone. It's a little pink, so I think I want a bit of yellow in it, yellow ochre. The red of that burnt sienna can go a little pink if you don't have enough. Grab a tiny bit more white. All right, so first coat in, it's going to be sort of a mid-tone. It's not my lightest color. I want to start getting the idea of this mushroom in without being too, that's actually very fleshy. I need it to be lighter. Much, much lighter. So I think now I'm going to just take white and add the white in. Oh, that's working. Look at that. That is working. Now I probably am going to end up covering most of my pen line on this little mushroom. And that's great, because what that does, the pen line gave me the where I needed to paint, but it's not going to be so in your face. Little mushrooms are so cute. Now that's very much the same as my background. I'm actually going to take a little bit of the burnt umber into my white and bring that in so I can start getting a bit of a shadow. I'm saying the light's kind of coming from behind, so the shadow really is going to be more to the front, isn't it? And then kind of glowing around the edges. But I want a bit of a darkness on one side more. Mushroom. Grab a little bit more of that dark, and I'm going to put it in underneath of that skirt. And have it swoop down. There we are. And then up underneath of the cap on the stem. It's going to be much darker, and then it comes out and sort of flares, and it will be lightened up around that edge because I'm saying that it's sticking out a little bit farther. So I really like this. The Holbein gouache is so luscious. It is re-wetting because this was, you know, from the tube. I poured it into the palette. Oh, nice. That's good. A little bit darker. See, and you know, if I get a little white into there, I can clean it off because this palette is dried. I can clean my little pans up. There. Now I need to sort of swoop down into that skirt from the darker bit. Oh, there. And right up underneath of that edge. Kind of swings around to the back. And then is up here. Tiny little brush strokes. Oh, I like this brush for these tiny details. Okay, a little bit darker to the very front. Very painterly. And a little bit darker right up here under that top edge. Sweet. All right, so now I'm going to go and put, I think I'm going to go in with a red, kind of mix my red together. I need a little bit of orange in it. I'll go ahead and get this cap put on. I should have gone ahead and just left some of those, more of those spaces, huh? You can. You could leave your spaces more. For the white, I'm bringing this one out just a little bit more. There we go. I want to dry it so I can put my white spots on, but I think before I do that, I'm going to grab a touch of Prussian blue and mix that in to my red tone. And bring in just a little bit of shape. Leaving a bit of an edge for a bit of a glow. I can always go back in and add my red back. I think I'll probably do that. I should have just gone darker to begin with, right? But I didn't know. I'm going to grow that out just a little bit more. Cool thing here, you can grow your mushroom however you want it. All right, I need to dry that. We're going to go with a much brighter orangey red. See, mean, look at this. Gives you the opportunity to put your highlights and your shadows in. I like working like this, back and forth. Your light colors dry darker, your dark colors dry lighter, so you know, if you end up having to paint in the whole thing again with your light color, you can do that. And then if you wanted to take some of your dark color in, so remember the very front of this guy right in here is going to be more, it's going to be a little darker. So we're going to go like that. Just put that dark in there. I'm not worried about saving those little spots. Actually, a tiny little edge, little dots. That darker color can make it feel almost like the little gills without having to draw them. Oh, there we go. Yes, that's coming together now. I'm going to dry that. See, I'm getting a lot of paint right here. My paper is lifting up from my board because the tape is releasing. Heat releases the tape. Grab that white. I'm going to put little tiny dots. Down here at the bottom. Kind of grow them up a little bit as they go up. I don't know. This is not a botanically correct mushroom. It is an emotional, cute mushroom. Couple spots out on the edges. Oh, that's sweet. That is just sweet. If you start moving around too much on here, your pink or your white is going to pick up the red underneath and make pink. I may need to do my final white dots with some bleed proof white. I am going to kind of break some of those spots that grew too close to each other. I'm just wiping off my brush. I've got a clean brush. Oh, don't make multiple strokes. Just touch and lift. Touch and wipe. That's what I'm trying to say. Touch and wipe. Don't brush back and forth. You will pull the paint up. Let's see, make that one bigger. Actually, what I want to do is grab a little bit of the bleed proof white after I dry it. See, you keep going back and forth, right? Because this gouache actually does bleed through the color. This is some of the P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. I'm going to take just a little bit. I'm just going to use the liner brush. Just take about that much and plop it down on my palette and then close the jar so it doesn't get a lot of air in there. Now I've got this lovely little plop of just white that you can't even see on my white palette. And I'm going to go make a few white spots, paint them in. The bleed proof white will actually paint over just about anything and allow you to get back to like white paper almost. I mean, it's not, it's going to be paint and you're painting on top of it, but tip of my brush has like one hair that's sticking out. There. Yeah, I got it. The bleed proof white is not going to let the color pull up through. I am going to clean my brush and grab a little touch of some of the red, because there's a few of these that I just want to separate a little more. They can be jagged edged. They can have a jagged edge to them. They don't have to be perfectly round little polka dots. They actually wouldn't be on the real toadstools, mushroom. That is sweet. All right, I'm going to go over here, grab a little touch of that white, do a little edge. I'm going to put an edge of white with that. Just highlight that edge. We're going to put a little sparkle of some white on the tops of some of those little mosses. Bring them forward. Tiny little lines. Maybe put a few little white lines on just a couple of the leaves. Thinking about where the light's hitting them from the back. So you might have some showing up right around the edge. Tiny little bit of water, keep that flowing. There we go. Oops, went off the screen, sorry. A little bit right there. Maybe even in the centers of a few of them. Oops. Needs to be a little bit more wet. And then, ooh, now I've got this pink. I don't want it to be pink. Let's just grab some regular white gouache. Regular white gouache. Put a little bit, just like every once in a while, just a little hit. Not doing it over everything. I'm just saying some of the light is hitting in weird places. And maybe even down here, a few little dots. It's going to pick up some of that green. It's okay. That is lovely. And I'm going to do my little glyph, very tiny, right up here, very tiny. Looks like a little log cabin. What I'm going to do now is heat this tape up. And pull it off. Ooh, looks like I'm pulling it off in just want to make sure that it's, whoop, there we go. Oh my gosh, guys. We painted a beautiful little mushroom card. If you're interested, all the information is down below on the materials that I used today. I'll make a little community post. So if you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button so that you'll get notification when I make community posts. Turn on all your notifications. If you want the long videos here on YouTube, you gotta watch them all so that YouTube will start sharing them with other people. Thank you guys. Remember, go out and do something creative. Take care of yourself so you can take care of those around you. I want to see you back here again really soon. Bye-bye.